Okay, just waiting for these to pop up. All right, first slide here. So first of all, an architecture overview of how we use the Globalstar system in conjunction with our primary comm system. So in the lower half of the chart, see our primary comms is a very typical TT&C link. There's a ground network, and we have an interface back to our mission operations center. Globalstar is, as we've talked about several times before, this is bent pipe over the Globalstar constellation. We implement full commanding and telemetry over IP for full duplex. And then we also implement a facility for doing commanding over the SMS service. Spacecraft flying the Globalstar right now are all using the full duplex GSP 1720, which we have integrated with our flight avionics. So in terms of concept of operations, Globalstar is used as a secondary communications path. Our primary path is, for the missions that we've been talking about today, they're all cadets, so all flying in the UHF, but we also have other commercial customers that are utilizing SL and X bands. We do not use these systems at the same time. There's a number of reasons for that. Especially on the commanding side, it can be very difficult to ensure order of operations if you plan on using multiple commanding systems. The primary plan for Globalstar usage is in LEOP, launch in early orbit. Plan there is, once we come off the launch provider, is to periodically beacon state of health information to help with the whole LEOP process. We also implement Globalstar beaconing as part of our general fault protection design. We enabled it after any faults that could cause a loss of the next pass, with the intent there to be to help recovery from anomalous situations more quickly. Part of that design, though, is putting in some thought to make sure that whatever we do to facilitate recovery in that respect is also not jeopardizing the safety of the spacecraft. Now to get into some details, we've got some information here on the summary of the Globalstar operations on Raven. We have not demonstrated any fully successful data transfer through Globalstar. We think that the primary reason for that is that Raven is in a high inclination orbit, 98 degrees.
These are consistently A side or B side for these detectors?
Oh.
Like this channel? Was there a gain change here?
Hey, Tom, I think you're not on mute.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. We think the reason for this is that Raven is in a higher inclination orbit, 98 degrees, with respect to the Globalstar being at constellation being at 52 degrees inclination, and that relative Doppler shift has caused some problems. We have done some testing that has where we did some planning around a conjunction with a constellation, one of the satellites in the constellation, looking at a case where we would have kind of a relative minimum Doppler shift while the satellite was over one of its ground stations, and we saw some limited success with that. We have confirmed that the Globalstar, it's from the spacecraft's perspective, it's operating, it powers on, we can dial into the Globalstar network. We have seen multiple IP packets received on the ground, so we know that that connection has attempted to be established, but we haven't had any meaningful data that was actually transferred. Post-launch, we did do some do some limited testing with SMS messages, implementing part of the interface there. We have seen a handful of messages received by Raven acknowledging that they are there. We do see, I think as Kyle mentioned something similar earlier, that those messages are often clustered. So depending on when we are able to make contact, it's we do see that effect of those of how they get buffered up inside the system. So this is something that we've been taking these lessons and kind of reworking our approach for kind of for the next set of spacecraft, particularly for these kind of NASA-sponsored programs. The next launches are Hubert and Tempest-D. So for upcoming work, we have a commercial customer with a launch in 2017, and we're very interested in getting feedback from that mission on the work that we've been doing. Just mentioned, Tempest and Hubert are manifested on Alana 23, which that's on an orbital ATK vehicle going to the space station in April of next year. We've been continuing investigation with Raven, although at the moment our primary focus is on the Raven mission, so there hasn't been a lot of troubleshooting with that. And we are sure welcome for feedback on our implementation from Globalstar, our government partners in this, and the rest of the CubeSat industry. Do you have any questions for us?
This is Joe Crowley from Globalstar. Do you have any hardware on the ground that you could use for doing some testing with the same flight software and hardware to look at the the connection to the Globalstar packet data network?
Absolutely, and we regularly do. I mentioned the commercial customers. We've done testing with 4 of those satellites. Is that all right, John?
2 or 3.
2 or 3, something in that. 2 or 3, most recently that have already been through that round of testing, and Tempest-D will be the next tier in the next couple of weeks.
And for all of those, we do an end-to-end test where we communicate with it both through the command link and through telemetry, a full end-to-end test through the Globalstar constellation.
And to be clear, that is what we did with Raven as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Launch.
Yeah. So sometime I guess I'll if you could send me the details of the one of those test modems, and I'll take a look at some of the call records and just see how that looks. See if there's anything that might raise a flag or something.
Okay, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
As far as the antenna patterns and that sort of thing, is the orientation of your test platform the same? The construction of your test platform, how you have things laid out, is that the same as will be that's up in space, or are you using like extended cables to go to an external antenna or something different like that?
No, it's identical to what we use in space. I mean, one of the nice things with these CubeSats is we take them outside and we power them on and run communication tests directly from the flight system.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of related to that, where you guys were seeing the SMSs getting through, were you able to backtrack what the attitude state was at the time to show roughly where the antenna was pointed? Kind of the same question Joe was asking me with Shark.
I don't know if we looked at that.
I know we looked at position when we got the SMS messages.
I don't think we looked at
if we looked at our attitude.
And nominally, Raven flies with the instrument nadir pointing, and that would put the Globalstar antenna looking in the zenith direction.
Okay.
Okay.
So unless we were in some sort of safe mode, it would have been a zenith pointing antenna.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks.
This is Mark. Just another quick question. And yes, Bruce, it is comm related. One of your slides intimated that you were also investigating X-band. Can you elaborate on that?
We have, we integrate with a variety of comm solutions from other providers. So we know a number of our customers are looking at X-band solutions. We also have an X-band system that we've licensed. Yeah.
Was that right? Can you elaborate? Is that for sale? How well does it work? Have you tested it?
So this is Scott Palo speaking. So we, under the NASA SSTP program, we developed an X-band transmitter at the University of Colorado Boulder that's been licensed to Blue Canyon. And we're currently, we built the version 1, ran it through TVAC and some basic performance testing with the folks out at Wallops to get DER and some other basic tests out of the way. We showed we're able to do 10 megabits per second, OQPSK, and it fits in a CubeSat form factor. We're currently in the process of doing a second rev of that board to make some improvements, and we expect to have some hardware for a couple of other programs in testing by the end of the summer. So we'll have more data on that in a couple, maybe in about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. We'd be very interested. I can get your contact information.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
that'd be great because yeah, we still have one from Bitsbeam, but unfortunately they went out of business before we could actually fly it on the nanosatellite. We're very interested in that.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to talk more about that and where we're headed and what the options are.
Okay. Can you tell me how much that X-band transmitter is in the window? Kind of like a dog in the window.
Yeah, I'm not on the business side, so I can send that maybe via email after having a discussion with George.
Okay.
Make sure I'm giving you a real number.
Okay. Even fake numbers are okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? So we're at the end of the presentations that we were going to plan to have. I got one question for you, Matt. I'm looking on your charts here. You've got a mark proprietary. Is that in fact?
That probably came through just the template that I was using. I can let me go back. I can remove those marks for you and send you a new one.
That's fine. Yes, because I want to speak out loud to everybody that I plan to put everything that was shown today on the web, which is available to everybody. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Does anybody in the room here have any other questions for anybody around here? We've got Joe, Kyle, Marcus. You had some good questions. Anybody else on the science team side, or Pam? Does anybody have any questions for anybody out there?
I was off for a while. It's Charles. I'm back online. I'm going to have to go off again in 5 minutes. Was there any discussion about, future Globalstar capabilities regarding increased data rate, the ability to support multiple satellites under a single institution? Any discussion of, what maybe interfacing capabilities might be available so that distributed teams could have access to Globalstar telemetry data? Questions along those lines?
The first one I can answer. As far as the upcoming systems, the Gen 2 system, as we call it, that's a 3GPP system based, and so that's entirely packet based. Our data rates there are going to be 19.2 and above and higher, basically depending as a function of the how strong of a link you can get with the gateway. And it'll be a much smaller modem. We're testing one implementation of that right now, and that will be our first implementation. And the objective is that we'll develop another modem, which will be necessarily much smaller, than the current one. But that's all to be announced. Now, what were your other questions there? You were mentioning about
I'm back.
something about multiple satellites, or
Yeah, if I could, Charles, how would someone fly a swarm or another constellation of spacecraft using Globalstar? Is that kind of where you were going?
Yeah, I mean, the basic question was if I had a small constellation of satellites that all wanted to communicate with Globalstar, what would that look like?
Is there an upper bound as far as being able to talk to these guys, or
no?
Not really.
We've got
talking
a
to
lot
millions
more
of people.
users on
Yeah,
the ground
that's
than we
true.
do, that are ever going to be up to space.
Good point.
So,
The satellites don't care.
yeah. So the satellites really aren't affected. The design of our duplex system is such that we're power controlled, so it's not like having those up there blowing out the receivers on the constellation or affecting others in any way. So the simple answer would be, we'll just put a Globalstar modem on each satellite, or if you want to do, your bang and vine between your constellation and do another uplink to Globalstar, you can do that. I mean, you can figure out how you want to do things on that end.
Right. And my understanding right now, I guess the third question was, it seems like if I'm not mistaken, the system is email-based. You basically send what looks like an email request, and the network communicates with your satellite through that mechanism. Just wondering, are there any plans or any intent to, have some type of interface, to Globalstar from the satellite user's perspective that might look more, that type of clients that people typically will develop to, transfer and receive telemetry, and to receive that type of telemetry through a different kind of user interface.
Well, I don't understand what you mean by email. You mean like sending text messages by text messages?
Well, that's my
over
question.
email?
I said I don't understand. I mean, what I was led to believe, and I mentioned I may be wrong, is that the mechanism through which you communicate to your satellite through Globalstar is somehow either text messaging or email based. I didn't get that in the presentation unless I missed it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Usually email is one method of sending a text message to a Globalstar modem. But as I was trying to say, for users like yourselves or industrial users, it makes a lot more sense, I think, to have a telnet server where you send them through your server, and you log when the message went out, what you sent, and when the confirmation came back, and you can correlate that with your TLEs. You can get a lot more information, but you can send it there through our web page or through an email or through the telnet. If you're using email, we don't recommend that. We don't send any of our data to people with email because it's not a guaranteed delivery mechanism. So now, in terms of the data link, the normal way is for the modem itself to initiate a connection, and then it gets a DHCP dynamic address, which gives it a sort of a unique public IP address, and sends the data to you, and that will work then, wherever you happen to have the modem, and so that's the preferred mechanism for that, because it's so flexible. You can go with, there are ways of having a static IP address, but that won't really work really well with the with your natively
Right.
with the modems with worldwide, because what we would need would be to set up mobile IP basically with Russia and Australia and this entire network just handling that. And also, so the way we do static IP for the US, for North America, and for the places that we own, down in Brazil and over in Europe, is we can set up IP. We can, track where users are registering, but that's not from the public internet. That goes through a VPN to your local server, so that you don't get spammed to death with, spurious packets. That, when that packet arrives at the gateway, if it's for your modem, we'll bring up a link to your modem. So, you just get clobbered with, all this extra airtime that just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't help you or anything. So that's why we recommend other methods of, that's why there's a lot of reasons why the dynamic addressing is just simpler, easier, more manageable. But we can do other processes too. For special customers, especially in the US or in other areas, they need protected lines going from from the gateways to their places. And so we'll set up encrypted VPNs. We'll do various things.
So out of curiosity, can any end user set up a telnet server like I could, and then, or do we have to go through a value-added reseller?
No. You can set it up.
Okay.
We just don't publicize it, because if we did, then someone would pull up a server and just start spamming Globalstar users, and tying and then having all of these notification emails going out. Our server would be seen as a spam source, by the email protection engines, by Barracuda, and so there's just
Don't do that. Yeah.
Don't we just so we have the capability.
Okay, gotcha.
But we don't publicize it because we only want honorable people to be using it.
Makes sense.
Because otherwise it wrecks it for everybody. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the same reason why when we've done public IP, when we've done static IP addresses, we don't give you a public IP address for that, because it's just unless you want 20,000 hits a day or something. So
Charles, did you have anything else?
No, that's all. That's been very helpful. Thank you.
You said something about interfacing, and I saw this in the agenda before, interfacing between teams, or you wanted some interface of Globalstar data with teams. When the data comes from your modem,